two manners of Rotzon that we discussed in the previous ois. Yuvon gam ba'avodas havaya horuchnis. We will be able to identify these two modes of Rotzon and see how that is found. Does it work? In avodas havaya beruchnis. Okay, and here I need to give you a little bit of an introduction. When we say Avedas Havaya, Avedas Hashem Baruchnis. There is Avedas Hashem Begashmius and Avedas Hashem Baruchnius. Begashmius, it means you do mitzvahs. It's all spelled out in Shulchan Aruch. In that area, in that arena, you recognize Hashem. Let's say a person eats. In what way is this Avodas Hashem? Avodas is on Shabbos. In what way is it Avodas Hashem? He's eating like anybody else. Where is the Avodas Hashem involved? Avodas Hashem, Begashmius, means that even though we recognize the world and we are participants in worldly activity, but we understand that the worldly activity is not a purpose and end for itself, and we are not seeking the enjoyment, the worldly enjoyment. We are doing we are doing the worldly activity because we recognize that actually this world is Hashem's creation. It was created by Hashem. And like the Rambam says, at the most fundamental level, the Rambam says that the goof, the human body, the Jewish body, should be healthy and well, is Avodas Hashem. Because Hashem wants us to be healthy and well, so that we'll be able to do mitzvahs. In other words, we recognize the reality that we're relating to, the primary reality, is the Gashmi. Except we know that the Gashmi is subservient and was created by Hashem, and therefore we utilize the Gashmi in that context, in that purpose. Avodas Hashem Horuchnis is a completely different thing. There it means... Is it something different? Is Avodas Hashem Begashmis? Right. And here it says Avodas Hashem Havaya Horuchnis. Avodas Hashem Horuchnis. Horuchnis means this is where one recognizes Hashem and wants to relate to Hashem, not through any kind of physical activity, but a direct relationship with Hashem. How can a human being have a direct relationship to Hashem? He doesn't see him. He can't touch him. What does it mean he has a direct relationship to Hashem? And as we will see, this is a possibility. This exists in Avodah. And primarily, this relates to the aspect of Rotzei. This is where one fully, truly recognizes the inyan of Elokus in Rotzei. what we have learned in the previous ois will help us understand this as we go through this. Vehine, behold, Iker ho avoidahu, the principle of avoida is bekoyach horotzei. It is in the faculty of rotzei. Sheyiyeh rotzoinoi v'cheftzoi be'elokus. And what is the avoda consist in? The avoda consists in getting to the point where his rotzoin, what does he really want? He really wants elokus. This will be explained as we go through. Again, I pose the question, how can a person in this world want elokus? He's hungry, so he wants food. He's tired, so he wants a bed. What does it mean he wants elokus? What kind of want? What is it consist in? And this is the meaning of the pasuk. V'yohavta savai lekecha. What does it mean? V'yohavta, you should love Havaya. What is the principle of love Havaya? How do you love Hashem? The shoyresh ahavahu ova. The root word of the word ahava, the root of the word ahava is ova. And ova is loshin rotzin. It means to want. How does one want elokus? The who, and that is shebo alidei ha'hizboinus b'havaya echot. And this comes through as a result and through the effort of his bonanus in the principle of Havaya Echod, of Hashem Echod. That's why it says Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echod v'Yahavta, which means the v'Yahavta is the result of the recognition of Hashem Echod. What is the hisboinonus in Havaya Echod? What does one recognize in Hashem Echad? So this is a principle in Chassidus. Chassidus explains that when we understand the word Hashem Echad, it does not mean that Hashem, that there is only one Hashem, that there aren't many gods. That is not in Shema Yisrael. That is folly altogether. Hashem Echad means to say that Hashem is Echad. This is the only thing there is. This is the real Echad. This is the real unity in all that exists. This is Hashem Echad. And what is the hisboinonus in this? What does one reflect? Eich, he reflects of in the perspective, in the view, Shazayin Rukim, that said the seven Rukim, the seven heavens. It says that there are seven, the Gemara says there are seven Rukim, seven different levels of what's called the Rikiya, the heaven. Va'oretz, and Va'oretz is the bottom, and the earth. Shazayin Rukim Va'oretz together is 8. This is represented by the Ches of Echad. Ches is 8, the numerical value of Ches is 8. The Daled Ruches O'Elam, and the 4 sides of the world, 4 directions of the world, that is represented by the letter Daled, which is 4. So, which essentially encompasses the entire space. Beteilim le'elokus are botel to elokus. This is what the word echad indicates. Shehaches v'dalet, where the ches and the dalet, which ches is 8 and dalet is 4. Hein zayin rikim v'oretz. This is a representative of the 7 Rikiim on Oretz. The Daled Ruches O'ilam and the 4 sides and directions of the world. This is the Ches and Daled. U'betoilim la'alef. And they're all bottled to the Aleph, which is Aluf Shalom. He is the Aluf, he is the master, and he is the principal presence of the world. Now, in our world, one thing we all can recognize in the world, that as huge as it is, there is an inherent unity in the world. Huh? Yeah. This book occupies a certain space, 5 inches across, 8 inches up, whatever it is. Now, each spot of space is a separate entity. And yet, there's a book here that occupies many spots of space. And it has no difficulty. It's not like it's in 7 different places. It's in one place. How is it in one place? It needs so many different dots of space. The answer is that all space, as much as it is separate entities, it is really one. And this is why we can have unity in space and occupy a given amount of space without feeling that you are broken apart in 17 different places. What is the basis for that unity? Why is it all one?
Basis for the what?
For that unity. If each piece of existence is an existence unto itself, how is there such unity? What does this show us if we reflect on it? That all the existence, an individual piece of existence, really, they are what we call botel. They are null. Give me permission to stay.
The phone keeps cutting out, so you didn't hear me telling you. I have to wait till it came back. I'm going to hang up on you.
All right. They won't regret it.
Huh?
They won't regret it.
He's happy that I told him that I'm going in the middle of the class.
Okay. But in the meantime, you missed an important point. I'll repeat it. I started with the morsel of this book. It occupies many dots, many pieces of space. Each piece of space could be a separate entity. And yet, this book is one entity, occupying all of this entire space. Why isn't there the sense that this book is occupying a whole bunch of dots and it's all separate entities? Why is there such a possibility of unity? If, in Gashmius, every additional piece of Gashmius is an addition, is a separate piece. How is it that all the separate pieces of Gashmius do not reflect a disparity, a separation, and they don't interfere with unifying things.
It's limited.
Also,
Because it's limited. I mean, it's limited. Which for example, this book, right? Does it have a lot? But it's limited. Like this is this line and this is this.
it's limited relative to what more space there is, but the amount of space that it occupies is a lot of different pieces of space.
Atoms and stuff flying around
It's
each other.
it's different pieces of space. Why is it a perfect unity? After I finish the sentence, you will hear the point. If Gashmius, which is in space, and the space is all measurable. Measurably means that you can have 1 inch, then you can have an additional inch, which makes it 2, and then a third inch, and so forth. These are all addendums, all additions. Each piece of additional existence is a separate additional existence. If I have one book, I have another book, no matter how closely I put them together, they're going to be separate books. So why is it not true in everything? Why is it not true in space itself? You have so much space. Each piece is a separate entity. The answer is that the space is what we call botel to Elokus. What does botel mean? It is truly a presence. But its presence is not representing itself. It's representing that which facilitates, which allows it to be. The gardeners that allows it to be. And this is why, even though they're separate pieces of space, but they're all one. Because essentially they're representative, the possibility of that existence comes from Elokus, not from the space.
And everything's Elokus.
And everything is Elokus.
So you, can I just make it straight?
What?
Can I just clarify that I understand what you're saying?
Yes, but not right now. Just want to, I'm kind of preempting a little bit. So the concept of being botel to Elokus, which means that the space is not in any which way fighting, announcing, I'm here, and you're taking up my room. Space is not in any which way objecting, why is this book in here? You're taking up my room. Why? Because it is, and space itself is the basis of space itself is the Ratzon Hashem, is the Rebishter, Hashem. And therefore, space has no say in the matter of what's going to be there and who's allowed to be there and who's not. Okay, so let's not say this. You'll have a chance. As I said, I'm preempting. Okay. Okay, so this is what Echod stands for. Echod says, and Chassidus explains, the Alter Rebbe says, that we say, where does it say that? It's not in Tanya. It's explained that we say Hashem Echod, not Hashem Yochid. Why do we say Echod and not Yochid? Although in principle, we want to say the same thing. Like I said before, Hashem Echod does not mean that there is only one God. It means that there is only one thing, which is God. And everything is bottled to this godliness. That's Echod. Yochid also means the same thing. He is the only thing there is. The difference between Yochid and Echod is that when you say Yochid, then there is no room for space. There's no room for Mokim. Mokim, space, consists of multiple pieces. That's what Mokim is. Up, down. And the same thing in Zman, in time. Time consists of past and present. If there is no past and present, there is no time. Something that does not experience any change from past and present is not within the realm of time. And the same thing in space. What is in space? That which has an expanse, more than one nakuda. So, and this is the difference between Yochid and Echad.
Why? Why does Echad leave room for multiplicity and Yochid not?
Okay, this is the point. Echad, the statement of Echad is that there is space. But like I explained before, there is space, which is an accumulation of infinite pieces of space, but they're all bottled to Aleph. They're all subservient completely to this Aleph, to the one.
Infinite space?
Huh?
Infinite space?
There could be even infinite space. There is a whole discussion of this infinite space and not infinite space.
See the cities?
Yeah. What?
Even according to us?
There is a minor where the Rebbe speaks, the Frierdiker Rebbe speaks about space beyond space. What is it? Is it space or it's not space? Is there emptiness there? It's a whole thing. But space per se, we don't speak of space in terms of, it starts here and ends here. What there is beyond space, we have no understanding at all. So therefore, from that perspective, space goes to infinity. But this expanse of space is botel to echad. In other words, even though it's in a big expanse, it's really all one. It's completely null. In other words, each piece of that space is not claiming some kind of an individual presence. You understand what I'm saying? Some kind of a separate presence. And this is why it allows that there should be one book that occupies a whole bunch of space. And there is no sense that this is a put together of many pieces. It's one unit. Yochid, on the other hand, is not speaking in terms of space at all. There is no expanse in Yochid. In Echad, there is an expanse that does not claim its own mitzias. In Yochid, there is no expanse at all.
What does an expanse mean?
Spread.
How could it be by Echad and not by Yochid?
Yochid is a type of single, right? Singular.
No. Yochid means single, but Yochid means
No room for anything else.
excuse me?
No room for anything else.
I'm sorry?
No room for anything else.
No room for anything else. Yochid means he's the only one, the only thing. Echad means that he unites everything, which ultimately means he's the only thing there is. But his unity is expressed through multiplicity. Whereas Yochid, there is only one, only him. from the perspective of Echad, you could say there is a whole big world, but it doesn't interfere with his unity because it's all bottled to him. From the perspective of Yochid, he can't even speak in terms of our world.
What about Einay Bavadai? And this seems to be more along the lines of the idea of Yachid, that there is nothingness.
Ein Oid Milvadai also says that there is nothing that extends beyond his presence. Everything that exists is all within his presence. But in other words, it's like saying that without him there is nothing, but with him there is a whole world. I want to discuss a little bit the principle of bitul. Say that the world, the other tzavos are botel to him. Bitul means that the object is there. Because if it's not there, then it's not. There is nothing to be mevatel. It's there, but it is but. Just to give a simple illustration of the concept. If I'm holding up this watch, and this watch is now in mid-air, and you see how the watch is in mid-air, but you also see that it's in mid-air because I'm holding it up. So this principle that you're observing, that the watch is in mid-air, is a non-entity. You're not relating to it in terms, the watch is in mid-air. Because the watch is not in mid-air, it's being held up by my hand. So that this phenomenon, that the watch is in mid-air, is completely bottled. It does not claim its own presence. There is no such presence as the watch being in mid-air. It's completely representative of the fact that I'm holding it up. But the fact is, it is in mid-air. But that fact, but that itself is not claiming its own presence. It's saying, it's representing the fact that I'm holding it. Okay? This is the kind of but so there is space. But normally we look at the world, the world is claiming its own existence. Say, no, if we reflect on it, reflecting on it properly, we recognize, no, it's just like you're present, but all it is representing Hashem's creation at this moment. And in itself it's completely bottled. It's not representative at all of itself. So while it exists, it actually represents the creative activity of the neighbors. This is the pshat that the space is like a mitzvah is a space, but it doesn't claim anything for itself. It is Hashem's provision for this space. The space per se, the Gashmizik space. I have a lot of room. You have nothing. It's all bottled to Hashem's provision. This is the principle of the Hizbonanus of Hashem Echad.
Bottle of Metzius. Yaki, there's no room for
There's no for anything else. Right.
So you can't have a bittul.
Right. We in our world cannot relate to Yochid. We know about Yochid, but we cannot directly relate to Yochid. Because this is completely above not only our seichel, above our rotzen, above our reina, completely.
We can say that Hashem, as he truly exists to himself, is Yachid.
Yeah.
But it's beyond our relation.
That's completely beyond that. That's why I say Yochid choy ho'ilam melech, right? What's the pshat in that? That he himself is Yochid. And being a Yochid means he's completely unrelated and above the whole possibility of creating a world. Ho'ilamim, who, when Hashem gives life and sustains the world, that's because he made himself into a melech. He came down from his level of Yochid and revealed the quality of melech. Melech can encompass a whole nation. This we say in davening, Baruch Shomar. Right, you're familiar with these words, I'm sure. Okay. Tahainu.
1 second.
Yeah.
Melech is the idea of Yachid?
No. Melech is on the contrary. Melech is a melech b'layam. A melech relates to Nifrodim, relates to a space. Yochid is Yochid.
Melech is able
to relate to Chei Ho'ilam, to worlds.
but it grasps everything. It's over everything.
It encompasses a lot.
Unlike normal material states or whatever.
No. The lashon in davening is Yochid Chei Ho'ilam Melech. What is the meaning of these words? That Hashem himself, unto himself, is Yochid, which means he's completely above the whole linear of creation of worlds. Chei Ho'ilam, but then he's also giving life and creating worlds. That is from his aspect of Melech. Huh?
Which is Echad. Melech is Echad.
Melech is the principle of that.
The whole principle.
Yeah, he's a melech. He's a melech. Melech has a nation. Has a nation and an expanse of space and people. Okay, can we continue? V'hainu. And therefore, this principle that we said, that the word echot represents the inyan that all of space is bottled to aleph, alufish aleilam. Hainu, v'hainu bitul havov ktsolos ktsolos lelakus. This essentially expresses the beetle of vov ktsovis, and I'll discuss in a minute, vov ktsovis to elokus. We need a little bit of a thinking cap over here to be able to grasp the idea. Vov Kitzovois essentially means space. Space is identified by 6 dimensions. Right? Anything that exists in space has to have 6 dimensions. It's called Vov Kitzovois. Anything that has Vov Kitzovis, like this book, has Vov Kitzovis 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Anything that has Vov Kitzovis, from our perspective, is a complete presence. It occupies its space, and it has an independent existence, because it occupies the space. Echod says that the Vov Kitzovis, like we said, Aleph Chesda, the Ches and the Dalet, which is the Vov Kitzovis, are bottled to Elokus. What is Elokus? Elokus is beyond Vav Ketzovis. Elokus is not space. So space is a created being, something that is a composite of, as you said, of 6 sides. Elokus is the absolute truth of existence, prior to any creation. Let me step back a little bit and discuss the concept of Elokus. The concept of Elokus we can only understand in the negative, because we understand only our mind can only relate to something which is within space. Now, it's because in our brain we're limited to spatial concept. Elokus is beyond the worldly existence, beyond space. Therefore, when we speak about Elokus, we have to speak only in terms of the negative. We will identify the limits of world, and then we'll be able to speak of Elokus from that, starting from that point. First of all, anything that has Vav Ketzovis, right, six sense, has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. It has to have a beginning. Elokus doesn't have a beginning. Can we conceptualize something that has no beginning? We cannot conceptualize anything that has no beginning. There already, our capability of understanding is lost.
We didn't get very far.
I'm sorry?
We didn't get very far.
We didn't get very far. What is the point? The point is that even though the Vav Ketzovis, they have a beginning, they have a mitzias, so you have to understand that in their presence, as they exist, they are really representative of the fact that which does not have a beginning creates it. That gives it a real presence. Otherwise, it wouldn't exist. It's really important to Elokus. It's important to that which is not within the realm of space or time. This is what makes it possible for it to exist. Where is all existence coming from? If all existence has a beginning, so where does it come from? It comes from that which doesn't have a beginning. And it already is representative, essentially, with that which does not have a beginning. It's bottled to it. What? He's enjoying it. This is the meaning of these words. Bikul havav ketzovis lelokus. Vav ketzovis represent something, the whole expanse of space and everything within space that exists only because, on account of the fact that it has Vav Ketzovis, occupies space. And actually, we understand that it is all bottled to Elokus. If it exists only by consent from Elokus that Hashem, and Elokus allows it to be. This is the principle that you may have come across in various pieces of Chassidus that says that in everything that exists there is a nitzutz elokי, there's a godly spark. What is this godly spark? This godly spark is that this which that central aspect in which this entity represents Elokus. If it didn't represent Elokus in any event, it couldn't exist. It couldn't exist.
Is it the same thing as saying that? How do you know that something is Paltiel because it exists? You know, when you see something exist, you know that it's.
That it has a Gana spark in it. If it didn't have a Gana spark, then it wouldn't exist. I'm explaining it more in practical terms. Just as we understand that anything that exists has to occupy space, now we understand that space itself is Botel Telikus. Which means if it exists by the consent and by the representation of a Lakus that it represents. This is the amazing thing, that Klippa also exists. How can Klippa exist? It's opposite of a Lakus. But a Lakus allows for Klippa. Ultimately, Klippa has to be Mizbarer, and the Klippa aspect of it has to be eliminated and show the Inyan Holaki. What is the Elokus aspect of Klippa? No, but in what way is it Elokus? There are several things involved in this. One is I'll have to give you a little morsel for this. You have an individual, a person, who I'll tell you the story. A story from Rabbi Melech Nizensk. Rabbi Melech is a Talmud from the Maggid. He was the Alter Rebbe's contemporary. Actually, he was older than the Alter Rebbe. The brother of Rebbe Zusha. Older brother of Zusha. So the story goes, it's a very Lizensk, from the city of Lizensk. So the story is that somebody went into a Misnagdisher yeshiva, and he sat there, and he saw that the Melech Sefer, the Melech from Eim Elimelech, a Sefer from Rebbe Elimelech, was lying on the floor under the bench. So he noticed the Sefer. People over there noticed that he noticed the Sefer. Say, do you know anything about the author of this book? What do you say about him? So he says, look, I have very little understanding in the author of this book. I can tell you one thing. If you took him himself, not his book, and put him under the bench, he would also lie there quietly. He would also accept it. What's the point? Someone whose mitzius consists in being recognized, when you throw him under the bench, he has to resist. You're nullifying my whole presence. The Melech's presence cannot be nullified. If you throw him under the bench, he still continues to do his own thing. He's Avodas Hashem, he's his bonus, and he's Avodah. You haven't done anything. You can't break him, because his presence is of such a level of truth that it cannot be destroyed. So this is the similar union of Klippa. Klippa represents the union that the Lakus is not limited to being recognized. It can tolerate even that which does not recognize.
That's the point of it?
This is what Klippa represents. That's why it says that Klippa actually represents a higher inyan elokus than kedusha. That's why Esav, it says Esav has a higher shirish than Yankiv. And that's why after you mevare the klipa, you have a higher oyer than if you had without it.
How does Mitzvahs of Klipa, this similar, can you repeat how is this like to the idea of Bali Melech, how his existence is not, can we bottle his existence and bring him under a bench because his existence isn't to be recognized?
You cannot destroy it. You cannot, so to speak, there's nothing that actually nullifies it.
Mm-hmm.
So the similar thing when you say you have a klipa. Klipa shouldn't, that it nullifies kedusha. It says no, it doesn't nullify. The Rebbe allows it to be. He can tolerate even klipa, even though it's something that he despises. It's against him. He can tolerate it. And ultimately, the purpose of that is to be mevarer and to reveal the inyan holocaust that is higher than Giluyim, it's called. Atzmos. This is a whole Torah Shlema in itself. The point which I'm bringing out is everything is bottled to holocaust. And thus, anything that exists must have a nitzvah halakhi that gives it sustenance. Which means, essentially, in our terms, in simple terms, it has to have some redeeming factor in which it actually represents Holocaust. In a hidden way, in an open way, but there has to be some kind of redeeming factor to it. That's a picture of Kedusha or Klipa. Which one is that?
This is a picture of how the story of Elimelech is related to Klipa. Explanation of Klipa.
Okay.
I don't know if it's Kedusha.
But a beetle havov ktsovis l'elokus. Elokus does not have vav ktsovis. Vav ktsovis, in everything that exists, has vav ktsovis, because that is what makes it a complete entity. Like we say in Gashmius, we see it clearly, right? Vav ktsovis. If you don't have vav ktsovis, it cannot exist. There's no presence to it. In Beruchnis, we're going to say, is the same. See in a minute, is also the same thing. Anything that exists has vav ktsovis. This is the principle, we're going to say, of 10 spheres. 10 spheres represent a complete entity. Essentially represents a presence. Elokus is above this whole thing. And everything that exists is bottled to Elokus. And it doesn't have the limit of having vav ktsovis. But its presence consists in the fact that something is recognizably existent. The expression that we always use is that Elokus is represented by the term, everything that exists is represented by the term, that fact that it exists. Elokus is represented by the term, by the fact that it cannot not exist. I cannot say it exists, but it cannot not exist. That its presence cannot be seen, because it doesn't consist of anything that is identifiably existent. It doesn't have a beginning. It cannot not exist. Anything that exists in Vav Ktsovis can exist and not exist. It exists, its existence consists in the fact that, oh, I'm telling you, I'm here. Look at me. How can you look at me? Because here I am, here is you. Right? And we are two separate entities. And
Here it doesn't exist.
Right, right. Elokus doesn't have Vav Ktsovis. So what is its existence? It cannot not exist. It cannot but exist. It's a different kind of existence. This is what's called the first being in the Rambam.
What was it called?
The first being.
Oh. You could call it the first.
That's what Rambam calls it the first being. Motzui Rishon.
It doesn't have a beginning.
Motzui Rishon. A primary being. Motzui Rishon, primary to everything that exists. Something that exists before everything else exists.
Call it first. I mean,
And not first in terms of first and second.
right.
Primary, I mean before everything. Right. Huh?
The thing.
The thing, right. Okay. So we discussed Rav Ktsovis, discussed the principle of bottle, of beetle, of avoida ruchnis, avoida gashmis. Huh? Echad.
That was my birthday.
Klipa, that's it.
Quarter of a century.
When's
your birthday?
Ashna-
Today?
Yeah. Starting now.
Ashnas Hatzlacha.
You were born exactly where you're
Huh? And Ashnas Hatzlacha. And nothing short of being a Chiddush Shabbat. That's what we expect from you. It's a shame.
I'm your mouth to God's ears.
It's a shame. To your ears.
My ears.
That's all that you need.
My ears are just a representation of it like
That's true. As long as you absorb it, then that's going to happen.